It's episode 116 of Unstuck, and today I'm chatting with my friend and colleague, Christine MacCarroll, about how she built her thriving nutrition practice. And guess what? It doesn't involve social media. So stay tuned. I'm Shawn Mynar, and this is Unstuck, a space for heart-centered entrepreneurs to implement both the inner work and outer strategies required to get unstuck and build the impactful, profitable business of their dreams. No hustle, grind, or long hours required. Let's get into today's session. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Unstuck podcast. Thank you all so much for being here, joining me, checking out the show. I have a very special guest for you today. This is someone that as soon as I decided I wanted to start doing interviews with other practitioners, other entrepreneurs, service-based, heart-centered entrepreneurs specifically, this gal came up for me. She is a great friend of mine. We'll talk about how we know each other in the chat that we have. But the reason I wanted to bring her on the show is because she has a successful, thriving business as a functional nutritionist without spending hours on social media or really any time at all on social media. And so I wanted to get in touch with her so she could share her knowledge, her experience, and what worked for her to get her business from zero to thriving, and doing so in a very simple, kind of back to basics way that I think gets lost in the shuffle a lot these days with all the other advice to like be on social media, to be on all these different platforms and do all these different things to get a following, to get an audience, which will turn into clients. But really, there are some tried and true tested ways from before even there was social media that still work today and that we still need to be thinking about and doing if we want a successful business. So because I know with the clients that I work with, how much of a struggle it can be for some of you to wrap your head around social media and to really want to spend the time there. And so I wanted to have this conversation so you can see proof of someone who does not spend time on social media, but still has created the business that they desire. So that's why I'm chatting with Christine today. Before we get into our conversation, let me tell you something about Christine. The creator of the Bitch Fix in 6 Steps to Happy Hormones, and host of the Bitch Fix podcast, Christine is all about one thing: helping other women get out of struggle and start living the badass lives they were designed for. After completely tanking her own health while helping her then 2-year-old daughter overcome a debilitating neurological speech condition, she learned 2 things firsthand. 1, the way we do health around here doesn't actually help most people. And 2, humans have an incredible capacity to heal when they have what they need. In her work as a functional nutritionist, Christine has helped her daughter, herself, and now hundreds of other women heal by demanding more and doing it differently. All right, let's hear from Christine. Christine, thank you so much for coming on the Unstuck podcast today.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here.
So you are very, very used to talking about women's hormones.
Yes.
Very used to doing that. But we are not going to talk about that today, although we could, and we'd still probably have a really good conversation that probably everyone listening would really want to hear.
Hear that conversation for sure.
But I want to talk about your business. And just so everyone has a little bit of backstory, we should give our history, which is that we met going through the NTP class together.
Yep.
And it was way back, what was it, like 6-7 years ago? I never know exactly when it was still to this day.
Yeah, it was. So the only reason like that I remember was because it was an even numbered year that we graduated. So we graduated 15. So it's been 6 years.
Okay.
That helps me remember.
6 years. That is good to know. very helpful. Yeah. And it was back when the NTA wasn't as big as it is now. And there weren't all these places to go to get your training. And they didn't have anything online that I can remember. So we all flew to Austin.
Yeah.
And so we had this group of 4 Coloradoans that flew to Austin 3 times to get our training. And that's how we met, but then also formed this connection with this little group, and then kind of kept in touch over the years and have remained friends and always kept in touch with each other's businesses, but also lives and everything like that. So that's how we go way back. And that is how I really know so much about what has happened with you and your business, and that it really is such a good story, but I think more so a really relatable story for a lot of people. And that's what I want to get into today. So first, let's hear more about you. Tell us who you are. What do you do now? Why'd you get into it? All that good stuff.
Oh, that's like a really long story. When you add all those things
we got time.
Okay. So I'm a functional nutritionist and I specialize in women's health and hormones. I also, like, to be honest, I see a lot of different kinds of people across the board. So that's my primary focus, but I have pretty much just anyone who feels unwell and hasn't been served well by the traditional medical model. So lots of people with digestive issues, lots of people with autoimmune issues, lots of people with mysterious long list of here's the 30 symptoms that no one has put together.
Yes.
So I have a lot of people kind of across the board. And the way that I got started, I always try and like, how can I make this the shortest story possible? I got started in this because my daughter had a diagnosed condition. So she had a neurological speech condition. It's called apraxia, and it's pretty rare, but essentially she wasn't talking. So like I noticed that it was helpful for me actually that she was the second child because I trusted myself more. And I noticed that she wasn't progressing the way that her older sister had. So the sounds that she was making did not sound like sounds that were going to become words. They were just like, I called them her cave girl sounds. So kind of like grunty noises that she made, but I was like, this isn't right. So I kind of trusted my mama intuition, but I also kind of didn't. And so I waited for a little while. And then around the time she was 2, I was in her like regular 2-year pediatric check, and like looking at the chart with the doctor, he's like, she's really like on the borderline. She was like, I think 5th percentile for language. So it's like, she's not off the chart yet. So if you want, we can just keep waiting because she's not off the chart. Or if you see her more than I do, if you feel like this is an issue, I can make a referral and you can go see somebody. So we'll fast forward a little bit. I didn't actually get the referral that day because I was scared. And I think that happens to a lot of people when like potentially there's bad news, they get scared. So didn't really want to do anything with that. Like a month later, I was noticing that things seemed to be getting worse. So I was like, all right, called in, I do want the referral. So we got her evaluated and they gave us that diagnosis. So we actually got her assessed in 2 different places. And basically apraxia just means that the words are in her brain. So she can think of what she wants to say, or these kids can, but the words can't come out of their mouth. So there's something broken in there. And that sounded like the worst possible thing to me, because to know what people are saying and to want to be able to communicate and then not to be able to sounded just like being in jail in your head.
Yeah. Big time.
So I just went on this, like, I'm kind of a pit bull. And this is actually a theme that I think we'll carry when we talk about my business. Like, I do not let something go. And I was like, I am not going to just take this diagnosis. And they basically gave me nothing. They're like, go to speech therapy. And I set her up for some speech therapy stuff. But I was also seeing parents who had kids who were like 18 and could say 5 words. It's like, this is not going to be my kid. So I just was so determined that I was not going to leave her with that destiny. And there had to be something else that I could figure out. So I just was like, crazy lady working full time and doing all of my research at night. I was staying up half the night every night, trying to read everything that I could about this. And I eventually found some research that was a relatively small study. I think there were 300 kids in the study in like a children's hospital in California, and they were giving them super high dose vitamin E, super high dose fish oil. And for some reason, what's funny to me is I like look back and I'm like, why did I pick that study? because I read a bunch of other things that were like, here's different things parents have done for their kids. And for some reason, I was just like, this is the one.
That stuck out.
So I like printed it off. I took it to her pediatrician. He basically laughed me out of the office. He's like, looks up the RDA for vitamin E. He's like, this is like far beyond an adult RDA. We're not going to do this, which is a bad thing to say to a mom who has a kid who's like struggling. I was like, bite me. I didn't actually come here for your permission. I was just looking for some help. And if you're not going to help me, fine, I will find somebody who will. So I spent another many months trying to find anybody to help me. Basically, lots of doors shut in my face, like unusual presentation, unusual diagnosis, unusual proposed treatment. Nobody would help. Through some serendipity, I love all of the serendipity that's coming up in this podcast with you, but other serendipity, like I was part of this mom's email groups. This is like, I guess before Facebook groups, but this like email thread with these moms. And someone was like, hey, this doctor at Children's is looking for moms who are breastfeeding because she's studying vitamin E levels in breastfed versus formula fed babies.
Weird.
So I was like, okay, well, breastfeeding, we were done with that, but vitamin E, here's that thing I've been trying to find somebody to help me with. So I contacted her, and her office was the first one that didn't shut me down. They were super great. The nurse talked to me. She then talked to the doctor who called me, and like, long story short, she's like, yep, let's do this. Let's try this. She asked me a ton of questions. Like, she actually treated me like a responsible adult who'd been doing my research. And she agreed to like monitor her blood work to help me do the treatment. So
wow.
We immediately went down like that day. She's like, go down to the lab. We went and got her blood drawn, and she called the pharmacist and was like, does she need a special preparation of these vitamins, or can she just go to Walgreens? And the pharmacist told her a brand that he trusted. Like, looking back, I'm like, that wasn't even a great quality brand, but I know now, but I'm like, hey, that was probably the best that he could tell me at Walgreens.
Yeah.
So we started like dosing her up, and within 2 weeks, she started putting sentences together.
Wow.
So it was like a truly like, just like Alice down the rabbit hole. Like, I couldn't believe that after everything we had been through, like, she just like, it was like she just came online, and just like really fast within a few months went from like putting together very short sentences to like full-fledged talking. We had been going to speech therapy. They said, you don't ever have to come to speech therapy again. We retested her, and she had gotten to the 95th percentile for language from 5th percentile. So it just pretty much blew my doors off. It was like, this was like an incredible, you give the body what it needs to heal, and then it heals.
Oh, that is amazing. And it probably, like it does for so many of us that get into this space, is it really opens your eyes to be like, food, nutrients, minerals, vitamins play a really important role in our health. And it really probably opened that door to you. And is that why you continued on then to the NTA?
Yeah. So like, I couldn't stop reading at that point. So I'd spent all that time reading and researching. And then I was like, I'm not done. Like, this is amazing that this happened to my child, but also how ridiculously hard was it for me to get this help?
100%. Yeah.
And nobody knew what I was talking about. No one believed me, which is like a whole other soapbox, but it was incredibly challenging. And I feel like it was such wonderful serendipity that I found this doctor, but really it was incredibly hard for us to get that help. And she could have been so much better, so much faster. So I think I had started down kind of understanding real food at that time. And I had kind of randomly been talking to another mom, say randomly again, but like talking to another mom who had told me about, I think, Weston A. Price. And she's like, I think this would be like resonate with you. Everything you've told me, like, you should start checking this out. And so I found the Weston A. Price Foundation. I watched some presentations, like looking at the dental work of the kids who were from modern society versus the tribes that ate traditional foods. And I think I kind of just got into that world that way. And so because the NTA is so aligned with Weston Price, when I was thinking like, I clearly want to, like, this is my passion and what I want to do, and like completely shifted all of my professional trajectory, It's like, this is aligned with what I have seen in my own home. And this is what I want to do to, to pursue that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that is something, and we talk about that a lot, where everyone, it seems like, that comes to this field, it's out of their own experience. And a lot of times it's out of their own frustration with how long it took to get help, or the doors that were shut in their face, or the answers that they're not giving, that they have to find out on their own. And then it's like, okay, we have to change this system. So we're all in that same boat and we're all doing it.
Yeah.
So which is great. Now, okay, so let's move on to this point where you are now in the NTA, you're graduating to become a nutritionist, but yet you still have a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
So what did that look like?
So I still had the full-time corporate job. I had been really balancing studying at night and like just doing my day job during the day. And I had worked out in my head, like it took me actually probably like several months to like work up the courage to talk to my boss to ask for a part-time schedule. So I had decided that once I graduated, I would ask to go half-time, and then I would do half-time of my day job and half-time of nutritional therapy. And I actually had this whole script. Like I had a major plan in place going into this conversation, and he was actually super great about it. And I think what helped me is I let him believe that it was like a work-life balance thing, like family. That was just how I played it. I think you can do it however you want, but I just played it like, and I think he assumed that, and I didn't disabuse him of that. So I just went to halftime, and then I started building my practice. And that worked for maybe, I will say worked, that was okay and semi-sustainable for about maybe 6 months.
Okay. Yeah. So not that long you were doing that.
And what it started to like become obvious to me was that I actually had 2 full-time jobs.
Yes. Right.
So my job, like my 9 to 5, was actually still giving me just about as much work, but just expecting me to do it in half the time because technically I was part-time. And, I had a false expectation starting out that when I opened my practice, I would have the hours that I was in practice, but then I wouldn't, like, that was it, right? It's just the hours you're seeing people. I had really no understanding, because I'd only ever worked for somebody else, about how much time is required to actually build a business. It's not just the hours that you're seeing humans, it's the hours to build a business.
Yes. Which is a lot.
It is a lot. So it was like, okay, I have 2 full-time jobs, and obviously one has to go. And obviously the one that's going to go is not going to be the love of my life. It's going to be, the one that has, granted, sustained me until this point. So I was grateful for that, but just not serving me in my soul.
Yeah. Not filling your cup.
Not filling my cup. And I also had kind of a mid-level boss who was a huge micromanager. I think this was a silver lining, but it was the only professional relationship I had I worked since I was 14. Only professional relationship I ever had where it was like oil and water. Like we just didn't get along at all. And she went on maternity leave. And when she went on maternity leave, I was like, that's it. No matter what happens, when she comes back, I'm done.
Well, that's a good motivator right there. Yeah. Good timeline. So, okay. So then you casually mention, and then I'm going to build my practice, which seems so like easy. Like, of course, you're just going to build your practice. But we know that it takes a little bit of, elbow grease, I guess you could say, maybe a little bit of creativity, perhaps too, to actually start building your business. So what did it look like at the beginning when you were trying to get clients? Where did they come from? What did you have to do? How did you actually build your business, build your practice?
So I think this was really like how it's been for me the whole time. So my practice is still almost 100% referral based,
which is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it speaks to what you do and how you help people, which is incredible. but it makes it so that your business kind of runs itself, like it sustains itself, which is so important. So you can really focus on what you love to do and what you want to do, which is help people instead of being like, okay, where am I going to find my next client? And
Right.
that's really super draining.
So it was, at the beginning, it was just meeting people, right? So it was a lot of networking. And the funny thing is, like, before, and I still like the word networking, just kind of like gives me some hives. But like when I was thinking about having to do that, like I would rather put my eye out with a spoon than go network. However, I would also rather put my eye out with a spoon than go back to my 9 to 5. Like, okay, put on your big girl pants. It's time to go and tell people what you do. And I think at the beginning of a business, it's like, I had spent maybe 2 months designing a logo. Like literally all of my free time that was off from my 9 to 5, I was like making a beautiful logo. I was working with a graphic designer. That was all very fun. And it got me 0 clients.
Yeah, that really is like procrastination and actually going and talking about your business to somebody.
Yeah, that is exactly what I did. So I just procrastinated for a long time. I got distracted by making pretty things and, like handouts that no one would see or whatever. And then when it was starting to be brass tacks of like a timeline, bosses coming back from maternity leave also can't sustain this. Like, then I was like, I got to start meeting people. So I just started going out and I was doing a lot of networking, and I'm like, here's who I am and here's what I do to everybody I could. And then a few clients started trickling in. I used to go, like, I look back on this, I'm like, this was freaking exhausting. I used to drive all over town because I didn't have an office. So like drive all over town to meet people at like coffee shops or, their homes or wherever. I was willing to do whatever I had to do to just like get things going. And I was like, this is just like, I just have to start the ball rolling. Like I just have to start things moving. So I was really like, it wasn't very sustainable at the beginning because I was just driving all over the place all the time.
Yeah, but you did what you had to do.
I did
And
what I
now
had to
look where it
do.
got you.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I just love this about you and this about your story is that when it comes down to brass tacks, you're not thinking, okay, I need to go get more followers, or I need to find a way to get people on my email list. You're like, okay, no, I'm going to go out and meet people and talk about my business face to face. Like I'm just going to go out there. And that's not what people think about today. And I think it's a big missing piece. Like, yes, you have an email list, you have an Instagram. We're going to talk about this stuff. You have that stuff and you have focused on that over the years. But when it come to shove, I just need some clients. Like, okay, I need to talk to people.
You go meet people. Yeah.
Yeah. You go meet people. And the amount of people, I bring this up all the time, that I'm just like, are you talking about your business? Like, does your, not just your inner circle, but does your overall network of people that know who you are, do they know exactly what you do? Answer, most people
No.
say no, because I'm afraid to talk about it. I'm afraid to shout it from the rooftops. And one of the beautiful things about being in this wellness space that we're in is that our network, there's multiple people that desperately need our help. So it's not like we're talking to mechanics and we're like a ballerina or something, like it's not like there's not like these mixed messages of like, why are we even discussing this? It's like, no, I'm talking about something that helps the general public and is desperately needed. So when you start talking about it, you are going to find these people. They're like, oh my gosh, I need your help, or my parents need your help, or my sister or my friend. You start the ball rolling, and that's exactly what you did. And I know both you and Bob, who also now has a super successful business, is one of our other friends from the NTA, did these like actual networking groups where you go in and talk about your business and you have a specific amount of time. And that really worked well for both of you. And I thought that was such a good way to start getting the word out in your area.
Bob's the one who told me about the first networking group. And I was like practically crying, like, don't make me go to networking.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like,
like,
so
no, it
good.
doesn't sound good.
Yeah. It sounds terrible. And especially like, I'm actually like a pretty shy person. Like I don't like walking into rooms where I don't know people. And he's like, you just have to do this. So he was really the one who pushed me. And then once I did join the same group that not his group, but like same brand, I guess, of networking. And, I wasn't niched in at that point. I was just kind of like what you're saying, like all of you pretty much could use me, which was true. Like everybody who's in here, I can help. And then, so gradually a couple of those people, and then maybe their friends or relatives, but it also like opened up for me, hey, this is actually something that is really useful. Like coming once a week and talking about what I do also got me way more comfortable with it. Like just so comfortable because I had to do it all the time that it was just so much easier. Like it ripped the Band-Aid. And then I started like finding other like, okay, well, where are there women's groups, or where are there other places where I can like start to just share information? And, I got so much less afraid from that first experience. I started doing that. I like started putting on some free classes and like, just again, kind of advertising in my community. I'm doing this free class, like come to my free class. And I think it just gave me that courage to just start being in front of people all the time. And so like that to me has been the magic piece of it, is just like, yeah, because people don't know this even exists. I didn't know. I wouldn't have known to look for a me when my daughter was struggling.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it still is very new. And I think that is something we kind of forget when we're in this bubble of wellness ourselves, is that we just think everybody knows that this exists and everyone has their practitioner already and that kind of thing. It's the saturated thing. When in reality, if you take one step outside of the bubble, then you realize that nobody even knows that this is a thing. And there are a ton of people struggling, and even worse, getting really bad information and getting really bad advice from other practitioners that we can actually help if we simply put it out there, if we simply get way more comfortable talking about it. And it does start from this square one of just like doing it. Just, yes, it's scary. Networking does not sound fun, but
it's not.
like just that word, like you said, it like automatically makes me cringe a little bit, but it is powerful. There's a reason why it exists, and there's a reason why a lot of people will tell you to do that. So I think that's so important to share. So your business model back then, and is it still today, working with one-on-one clients?
So yeah, so for the most part, my primary part of my business is still one-on-one. I have started a group program, mostly because I was getting really full. And I was like, okay, I have to be able to help more people at once. And I had, after maybe 2-3 years, I'm actually trying to remember exactly when it was, I had niched into women's health, mostly because I had helped myself. So in that whole story of helping my daughter, like what I didn't say is that I just trashed my own body. It was like, let me just put 100% of my energy into helping my daughter. That was amazing. But I was like literally living on like coffee and sweet organic sugar in my coffee, right? Like it was organic coffee and organic sugar, but I was really just not taking care of myself, and I like trashed my own health. And so when I rebuilt my own health, I was also looking at a lot of the people who were coming to see me were women. A lot of them had very similar issues and were using even like the same words to describe what was going on. So I was like, okay, clearly I've experienced this. So many of these women who are coming to me are experiencing this. Let me start a group. And so I do have a group that I run as well. And I just enjoy doing both, actually. So I don't know that I'm ever going to not, and famous last words, but I don't know that I'm ever not going to have a one-on-one practice, because especially people who have more complex issues, I really love doing that work. But then there's also people who can make it incredibly far with going through a step-by-step process.
Yes, totally. And it's nice to have both of those options, really, depending on what that person needs at that time. It's great to have that accessibility, I think, to you as well.
Right.
So one thing that I absolutely love about your business is that I very rarely see you post on social media. And I think that's great. And I feel like every time, we've known each other for 6 years now. We before COVID, we were meeting about once a quarter. We would all meet up and have lunch and stuff like that and talk about our businesses. And every single time you'd be like, yeah, I really should be getting on social media, but like every time. And
Yeah.
you don't. And I think that that is so great. And I feel like maybe you at some point, maybe you feel like, yeah, it is something you should be doing. But like you just said, your business is sustaining itself without this. And that's really what I want to talk about a little bit because there are, let's see, I would say about, let's say 90% of the clients that I've worked with have this sentiment, which is like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to be a slave to social media. I want to post maybe when I want to. I don't want to feel like I always have to. I don't feel like it's good for me or it's good for my clients or anything like that. I just don't like it. Like this is a
Hmm.
very common sentiment I get. And I think it's especially, not to call us old or anything, but like our generation or the people that we work with, it's just not the same as someone who's in their 20s
Yeah.
where this is what they've grown up with and this is what they're used to and they don't even realize that it's actually quite toxic for them and things like that, whereas we are like there has to be another way and I don't want to be a slave to this thing. So tell me a little bit about, I guess, what your overall thoughts are on it, what you have tried or not tried to do, if this is something you've been consciously doing, like what's going on.
I think I clearly have some unconscious blocks against it because it's like, oh, it's just like the
Yeah.
last thing. And even now, like I have some social media, it's only because my assistant's doing it for me.
Yes.
So I'm like, here's all my content, here's some pictures, make something for me. um,
I love it.
and I still will write it, but it's like, it's just, I don't know. There's some block I have. I don't enjoy doing it. It's not that I don't actually look at social media. Like I probably look at Instagram once a day, but I don't like sit there and spend hours on it. And it just has always felt harder to me to speak to a bunch of anonymous people than to talk to somebody who's right in front of me that I can like just hear what's going on for them. And then like my favorite feeling, like I think the reason why I'm like never going to give up one-on-one is like the feeling when somebody's telling me all the things and in my head I'm already like, yep, 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 yep. Like here's
Yeah.
exactly what we're going to do. I got you. Like you're going to feel amazing in 6 months. Like I love to be able to have that feeling. And I get that feeling from talking to humans, not from social media. So I guess it's just like what feeds me is
Mm-hmm.
talking to people. So I don't feel as much of that on social media. I am positive it's there, but I just like, I don't get it. So I am not amazing at that content.
Yeah, well, but it comes back to, like you said, your business and you getting new clients is pretty much solely referral based. Like
Mhm.
someone so a former client or a current client, or even just someone in your circle recommends you, and then you have a new client, and it keeps going and going and going and expanding because, like you said, now you're pretty much always close to full schedule, right? Like
Mhm.
even sometimes
Yep.
going on wait lists and things like that. So, which is amazing and obviously makes it a very sustainable, successful business for you. And it's something that you want to do and feel good doing. And you do it from home now, right?
Yeah. So
It's all
beginning of
virtual.
COVID, yeah, I still had a physical office like March 2020, I still had a physical office. I do really love seeing people in person, but once I came home, actually, like a lot of my clients started also being not local, I think, because as
Hmm.
referrals grow, it's not going to be just local. So people are
Hmm.
referring people they know in other cities. And it was just honestly easier with my life to remain at home. So even when things started opening up again, it was like a pretty tough call for me, actually.
Hmm.
But it just made the most sense in all the ways for me to be
To
virtual.
keep it that way. Yeah,
Hmm.
but I think, going back, I just think it really is a testament to you putting your energy where you feel it is best, which is in working with your clients one on one and being able to help them and give them the best possible support that you can. And when you do that, that is also a way for your business to grow because you're going to get referrals. If you're only half in, half out, or if you're like in the back of your mind while your client's talking to you, thinking about like, oh my gosh, I have to post on social today. What am I going to post? Like if anything is like tearing that energy away, then it may not come across in the same way and you may not get as many referrals. So I just really wanted to showcase this part of your business that really shows it doesn't have to be hard,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to require you to be in 17 different places at once. And it actually is better that you don't. But instead, if you can really give this amazing experience to every single person that you come across and every single person that you work with, then your business is going to sustain itself. That's just how it works. And like you said, especially in this world where a lot of people don't even know we exist. And then as soon as we help someone, even with just one little thing, like, hey, drink more water. And it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm a completely different person. I have to refer you
Crazy.
to 75 people. Like it's simple things like that, that really we do have this place where you can have a business that grows and flourishes without having to show up in every single place all the time, everywhere. And you're the perfect example of that. So I think that's really amazing. It says so much about you and the work that you provide.
Thank you. I was
Yes.
also thinking about this the other day because I was like thinking about this conversation and I was like, this is like the least sexy thing ever. But I think it's like compound interest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I've been in practice for 6 years, and the number of people that I have worked with in that time, like you said, who've gotten great results. Like the first year I was in business, maybe that was 10 people. But then if only, half of them told one person, I'm already going to have like that many more people every year. So it is something that has built up. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have 100% full practice the first year,
Of course.
right?
Yeah,
So
of course.
like it's like not sexy, but it's like the more I just keep showing up and doing it and helping people, and then the more people that is, like it does start to create its own energy where it requires less energy of me.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of patience involved, right? And knowing that that's what you're ultimately working towards and that that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're building. And no, it's not going to happen in the first 6 months or a year, but over time, that's what you have. And it will just keep rolling and rolling and rolling to this point where, yeah, your options are like, I have a group program. And then, or you can wait and, we can work together one-on-one or maybe do both, start with a group program. And then if you still have some things that we need to work out, we can do one-on-one in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing is a really cool, it's such a good business model, I think, to be able to have both. But there is one place that you have showed up, and I think it's because you enjoy it, which is in your podcast.
Yes.
So talk about the decision to do that.
So I think I just like wanted to do it for a super long time. And I was also super intimidated by
Yeah.
it. Actually, I think because you had a podcast, partly, I was like in my head in a story like, oh, I already know someone who does that. Like that's taken.
If Shawn can do it, anybody can do it. That's what I know.
Yeah, that was the opposite. I was like, oh, that the slot of a podcast is taken, which is the weirdest thought, like
Yeah.
to look back on,
Especially
like
because we
that
have
was
never,
dumb.
ever had the same niche
Niche.
remotely.
Right. No, like, yeah. It's like not like we were like competing in any way,
No.
but it was almost like I can't do that thing. But I had tried YouTube, and YouTube requires too much freaking effort. Like
It is a lot of work.
to like look good and have a
Mhm.
setup and like the lights, like it was like exhausting to me. It was very much like social media, like where it's like you have like an image to be showing up as. What
Mhm.
I found so like just easy about the podcast is that I obviously have a lot to say. I can just keep talking all the time. And I never had to worry about any of the things that are social media-esque. Like I didn't have to look good. I didn't have to have any pretty pictures. I didn't have to have anything perfect. It could literally be like me in my pajamas at 9 o'clock at night, just like turning on the mic and going. And it was just fun, right? So it was just fun for me and way easier than the things I told myself I had to do. So like that just has been an ongoing thing because it's fun, because it's easy and fun. And I guess maybe that's the theme. Like whatever's, although networking wasn't necessarily easy at first, but like
It got there.
it got there, it got a lot easier. And
Mhm.
so it was easy and fun.
And you're still doing it. How long have you had your podcast now?
So I think it's been a little over 2 years. So I just passed the 100th episode, and I've been like more or less once a week. There definitely have
Mhm.
been some off weeks in there, but I started it like, I think spring of 19 was when I started it. So
And you have just had kind of a natural progression of it just becoming a pretty good staple for you in just connecting with the right people and letting the right people know what you do and getting the information out there. And specifically, it's women with hormonal issues, right? And is that a pretty decent place for you to get clients too? Have you noticed any clients that have come to you because of your podcast?
I actually did math on this. Like,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, I did
Wow.
math a couple months ago because I just wanted to know.
No, that is something that I feel like most people would do that I personally would never consider
Well,
doing.
it's like 6 years into my business. I'm like, math.
Maybe I should have some numbers.
Maybe I should have some numbers. So 75% of my practice is referrals.
Okay.
25% is other, and that includes the podcast, but it's not all podcasts. So randomly, and I am not good at SEO, but randomly some Google stuff. Like there's some random other ways people find me, but 75% referral, podcast is in there. But what I think about the podcast is so first of all, that number didn't deter me. The fact that like it's not driving all of my business, it's still easy and fun for me. And I also think it helps with my referrals. So I think if someone refers someone to me and they're like, I don't know her from Jane, but then they go listen to this. I hear this a lot. They're like, so-and-so told me I should talk to you. And I was like, I don't know. But then I went and like blitzed 50 of your episodes. And I was like, definitely, I want to talk to her.
That is such a good point. Yeah. Is it kind of allows for that warming up to happen without it needing to be through necessarily a conversation with you right away. It's like, okay, I'm a little hesitant. Someone told me about this person, but then now you have this content out there that very much showcases your personality, first of all, obviously your expertise, and people can kind of go about that process. So a lot of people, I'm sure you get this too, a lot of people tell me, like, I feel like I already know you because I listen to your podcast. Like it gives them that feeling so that they feel comfortable taking the next step, which is great.
Yeah. So I'm still counting those people as referral, but I almost think of it's like that's a double, it's like a double win kind of, So they got the referral, that was the introduction, but because I had everything else available, then they were able to get to know me.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, I love that. It really does all come full circle. And all of it, like you said, you're keeping it fun, you're keeping it easy. You're not trying to do something that doesn't feel right to you or like feels awkward or weird, or you start overthinking it. And then it's just, again, not fun. Definitely not easy. Right. And I love it. And it just, as it comes up naturally, then you just do it. And you're also, like you mentioned, you're kind of this bulldog and like you're gonna figure it out. Like if I need to get clients, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna be wishy-washy on my logo anymore. I'm gonna go out and actually do something.
Yeah, I still have the same logo.
Well, it was worth it then.
Yeah.
Those 2 months of only working on your logo. That's so funny. All right. So I want to hear, as we wrap things up, I want to hear if you have anything that comes up as a piece of advice that you would either give someone who maybe is just starting their business, maybe just got their certification, kind of hesitant, maybe still has their other like job that's actually quite draining and they're feeling kind of burned out from it, but don't have clients yet or just getting started. That kind of person. Or what would you tell yourself back in those days? What do you have to offer these people?
Yeah. So I would spend zero time on any of the things I wasted time on at the beginning. I would have just started talking to people immediately.
I would not have even bothered having a website. Like,
no,
just let me get a few clients and then I can work on this darn website.
Yeah, it's not important. And so if I would have just started to meet people and I would just, that is what I would do from the beginning. Like go start telling everybody that you know and people that you don't yet know, like tell everybody what you do and that you can help. Like literally that's it. And as you start to have some clients, okay, maybe then it's time to like figure out the logo or make a website or whatever other, all of the beautiful forms. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, what a ridiculous waste of my time to make beautiful forms instead of going to get clients. Like I probably could have quit my other job even sooner. So going to find people and just knowing I have really enjoyed getting a lot of advanced training. Like that's also, I think part of, for me, I have a way greater number of tools in my tool belt than the average person. And so like, that's something, but I did it because I love it. And I wanted to just keep finding ways to help people, but that wasn't an obstacle. Like I started seeing clients immediately
Right.
after I graduated. And so I had tools to help people immediately. I didn't have to go do all of the training. I did it because I wanted to, but
Right. Mm-hmm.
like literally just starting to get experience working with actual humans. And then, like things like I was able to narrow in on what I wanted to do because I was seeing everybody. And then it just so happened like a lot of the same messages were coming through of what they wanted. But I was just like, I will see everybody at the beginning. So I had no barriers. So like just getting out there, not worrying about everything being perfect. I even remember you, Shawn, telling me like when we were still in our program, like, you should be on social media. You should do Instagram. Like you were taking pictures of your food.
I was doing all of it before I even had my certification. It was so crazy, but yes, I was.
But that was great. Like that totally worked for you. So, but in my head, I've been like, oh, I'm supposed to take pictures of my food for like 7 years.
Look at me. I'm being such a brat. Like you need to be on social media, but she didn't. And look at her go. She didn't take my advice.
I think you were telling me get out there.
That's true.
But I did. I just did it. That was the theme. And I got out there in a different way. But like, I didn't need all the things. I just needed to go talk to people.
And that's all any of us need to do. I guess, yeah, some people do it by way of social media for sure, which is one way that you can talk to people. But at the end of the day, it will become so obvious to you how actually quite easy it can be to get clients if you just start talking about it. And that's really like, I think the main theme of this episode is that it doesn't have to be as complicated necessarily as you're making it out to be. You don't have to be in all these different places doing all of these things to have a business and to get clients. You just need to start telling people and just start in your local area. Even if you want to be virtual and you want to do it from home, you can absolutely do that with someone that lives across town. No big deal. That's fine. But just start doing it anywhere and everywhere that you have the ability. Start making these connections, form a community, get into some networking groups, do what you need to do to get the word out there. That's really all it takes.
Yep. That is exactly it.
Oh, I love it so much. All right. So tell people a little bit more about what, like you said, your podcast, where are you? Where can we find you?
Yeah. So the podcast is The Bitch Fix. And that's probably like the easiest thing to remember. Like it's so funny. I went to like the first networking event I've been to in, like more than a year and a half, a couple months ago. And I was like, oh man, I don't even have business cards. Like that's not a thing I even do anymore. I'm like, well, that's easy because my podcast, anyone can remember The Bitch Fix.
It's like, very easy.
So it was just like everyone who was like, can I have your card? I'm like, go find my podcast. You'll remember it. I promise. So that's probably the easiest way. I am on social media. As you mentioned, don't post much on Instagram.
I mean, you'll see her maybe a few times a month pop up.
Yeah. And anything so like I said, my assistant's doing the posting for me, which I so vastly appreciate.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I still write the content, but I just let her find the time to post. And so that's Christine.MacCarroll. And then my website is just my name, ChristineMacCarroll.com.
Yeah. And we'll have all that linked up in the show notes too. But it was so great to talk to you about this. Like I said, I know you're very used to talking about hormones, but isn't it kind of fun to talk about like how this all started? Like, how did I make this happen? This is so crazy.
It was actually fun thinking about it. Like just when you asked me, I was like, oh, like I don't ever actually think about how does this all work?
Yeah, well, and just so you know, there are obviously some really great practitioners out there that are struggling to figure this whole thing out. And I think the way that you can just simplify it for everyone, like you just did, and just see how you can have a very successful business while keeping it super simple. And I think that is really helpful and empowering for people to hear.
Yay. I love it. I'm so glad.
So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It was great chatting with you.
If you're like most of my clients, you followed your passion for health, got your certifications, did the trainings, and now you're excited to have your very own thriving, impactful wellness business. But how do you actually do that? It's a common position to be in, especially in the wellness space, because no one teaches you this whole business thing along the way. This trend is exactly why I'm here, a passionate nutritionist turned business coach for wellness professionals, because I'm done seeing wellness practitioners continue to play small in their business simply because they don't know the right steps to take. If you're like most wellness pros out there with a dream to start their own impactful, freedom-filled business, you've probably spent hours trying to build your website, figure out what the heck to post on social media, and taking all the courses to try to get confident in what you're doing. Or maybe just the thought of all that sends you into a puddle of stress and overwhelm. Good news, you don't need a perfect website, a killer Instagram strategy, or to be an expert to have an impactful and successful business. What you do need is a plan. The Wellness Business Blueprint is the jumpstart you need to plan, prepare, and execute on your passion for helping others without that sinking feeling of overwhelm. Because this isn't like the other stuffy, boring business plans out there. The Wellness Business Blueprint is centered around you. What feels good to you? What's right for your business, your dreams, and your lifestyle? What keeps you in alignment and your energy flowing? What allows you to stay sane and stress-free and excited in your business? Because building your dream wellness business starts with a plan that works for you. This free 15-page printable workbook will take you through my signature Flow and Grow business framework so you can create your own business vision while gaining clarity, structure, and a solid plan to move forward. Download it today and get started on your business blueprint. Head to ShawnMynar.com/WBB. That stands for Wellness Business Blueprint, and get started building your dream wellness business today. Again, that's ShawnMynar.com/WBB.